realize the people around you are not supportive. They are not helping you on the path that you need to be on to become the person that you're meant to be.
Right.
And the healing path becomes a very lonely path, many times momentarily.
Welcome to the Fearless Happiness Podcast, where we showcase phenomenal individuals who have overcome serious traumas, life obstacles, and challenges to find their own path to fearless happiness. Listen as Max Nijst invites guests from all around the world to share their experiences and spread strength, hope, and faith. This is the Fearless Happiness Podcast, and this is Max Nijst.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. I know I say it all the time, but I do have a very special and amazing guest joining me today. All my guests are amazing and special, but here's another one for you. Her name is Melissa, but what I like to do, Melissa, is have you introduce yourself to my audience, like who you are, what it is you do, and then you and I are gonna, like I like to say, rock and roll.
Perfect. So, yeah, my name is Melissa Osorio, and I am a mental health advocate and also an advocate for psychedelic assisted therapy for trauma healing. And I self place a title upon me as a resilience champion. So that tells a little bit about my journey as well.
I love it. Resilience champion, right? Because this is what this show is all about, is showing our resilience as human beings. And, you know, some of the amazing guests I've had on who, like you, who are going to share their story, like where they come from, like the challenges they have faced and overcame, right? To be where you are today. So, Melissa, let's go back a little bit, like talk about some of those challenges that brought you into this space and the work that you do, because I think it's interesting, right? That um, in this day and age, they're starting to use more of the psychedelics to help with trauma, which science has proven, right? Like done right, it's so amazing and helps people, right, live healthy, happy lives, right? Instead of staying, as you know, we can stay stuck. And I'm sure you've come across people before working with you, like we relive that trauma over and over, right? Because our brains are very powerful. So talk about that, like where you've come from, the challenges you've been through, and then share with my audience like how that affected you and then how it brought you to where you're at today.
All right, well, that's a loaded question. I'll give you like the
I
Reader's
love giving
Digest
loaded questions.
version, and then we'll dive in.
Okay.
Um, I was born in South America in Venezuela, so a very turbulent childhood. Not only because of what was happening behind closed doors in my house, but also because being born in Venezuela, it's a dangerous country. So it was a very different childhood than I think most people here in the U.S. Are used to. Then eventually I moved to the US, started, with businesses. I was very business driven. Uh, at 25, I got into a very, very hasty marriage. And that was followed by 8 years of a really bad marriage. So didn't get divorced earlier because I also grew up super religious, and getting divorced was a sin, right? Against
Right.
God, and I didn't want to sin against God. So I stuck it out for as long as I could. But all through my life, I had all these telltale signs that there was something, I don't use the word wrong, but it felt like there was something wrong with me. I felt I was broken in some way. I had no friends. I had no interest in people. I wasn't even close to any member of my family. I didn't really love my ex-husband. And yeah, in part is because we were in a good match. And I won't go into details in that, but also in part is because I was unable to really feel my emotions. I couldn't be in the same room than my stepson without feeling antsy, without wanting to leave. I couldn't love him, so I felt really broken as a woman. I felt I had not maternal instinct, just so many things. Also, throughout my life, I faced different coping mechanisms in the forms of addictions. And the interesting part is that, sometimes when we look at into our lives, they're threats, but we never connect them. So, at a young age, I became bulimic. So I was bulimic for many years. And then once I was able to stop that, then I jumped into alcohol. So normally, when you're trying to self-regulate your nervous system, addictions is the easiest way to do it.
Right.
And many times, we don't think, oh, bulimia and alcoholism or self-cutting, they're connected. They're all connected. They're just ways that we have to self-regulate, as I mentioned. And usually when you're facing these type of addictions, it's really hard to stop them. So you will pause one or stop one, but immediately pick up on the next. So we see that a lot with people. So I went, from bulimia to abusing alcohol. And then I was really declining a lot in my life, even after I got divorced. And through a series of circumstances, I became really heartbroken and depressed. And in that juncture, I decided to do something that was really scary, which was to go down to Costa Rica to this retreat that my friends had told me about, that I didn't even want to research because I knew if I researched it, I was going to be like, this is black magic, this is a sin, this is demonic, right? So I showed up in this place, wanting to find a purpose and to heal from my heartbreak. And a lot more than that happened. It was the most challenging uh, night of my life on my third treatment there when I started to recover memories from my childhood. It really devastated me, but it allowed me to eventually be where I am today.
So you talk about that trauma, right? Like being in a bad marriage. And I've been in recovery for over 21 years, right? Going on 22. And it's funny because I work in addiction, right? And I find that a lot. Like clients will go from one addiction to the other, right? Because they're still, right? Because sometimes treatment is so quick that they don't really address the root cause of what's going on, right? So they want to stay sober, but then they go on to, like, say they become a workaholic or get overdo exercise, right? Or whatever the case may be. So like in your case, right, going from an eating disorder and then to alcohol, right? It was your mind's way of saying you're still feeling these feelings, but you need to not feel them. So let's go to, the eating part is not good. So let's go to find something else, right? And I've seen it like gambling. I've seen people get sober, do really well, and then all of a sudden they're back in treatment, right? But it's not because they did drugs. It's they went and gambled because that was their new addiction and they lost
Yeah.
everything again, and
And I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that, alcohol is a carcinogen and it's terrible for our bodies, but it's been popularized and tied to happiness and celebration, and I still drink. However, I'm very mindful with it because whenever you have abused a substance, there is always that tendency, that pull towards that familiar behavior.
right.
So, and that's the thing with addictions, right? Like we gotta be very mindful on how we make the choices that we're gonna make moving forward.
Right, because you're exactly right, especially with alcohol, because it's so readily available, right?
Socially acceptable.
Socially acceptable. The movies make it look like it's the thing to do, right? Like there was a time when I was getting sober and it seemed like every commercial was smoking and a drink, right?
Because it
Like,
is.
right, right. Like, and thank God I quit smoking at 2 years sober, but it was like, I'm trying to do this thing, but everywhere I turn to, right, there's signs about alcohol or where, every store, there's a liquor store on every corner, or even in the supermarkets, right, where you're walking in and there's a whole aisle. And in my case, it was funny because there's some new brands of alcohol, right? And I would walk through the aisles and look and go, man, where was that when I was drinking? And my wife would pull me and go, come on, you don't need to be in here. I'm just looking, honey. I go, but where was that when I was drinking? I might have liked that. Right. It's
Well,
like
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's like some of the drugs that these kids coming in today to get off of, right? Like, thank God fentanyl wasn't like huge when I was using, right? but heroin kind of was, but I may not be having this conversation with you, right? Because I'm like the guy, I'm like the human garbage disposal or the chemical gourmet. I heard someone call us druggies at a meeting one time, right? Like, and I'm like that guy. Here, you try. Oh, yes, hell, I'll try it. No problem. But we know that only temporarily masks the feelings that we're going through. And what happens, as you know, because you've been through it, right? Like when you come to, as they say, wherever you are there, wherever you go, there you are, and all the feelings come flooding back. And then we're either going to keep using or the behaviors that help us numb ourselves, or like yourself, you're going to find a way to heal, right? Because I believe what Gabor Mate says, I believe that every addiction has some type of trauma behind it, right? And whether big or small, there is a trauma, right? It could be right the abuse that happened as a child, or it could be like a divorce of parents, because people don't realize that's a trauma for a child, right? And you carry that into adulthood. So as you're going to this retreat, so I take it this is where you find the psychedelics, right? How
Yes.
was that experience, right? Because you said it. One thing you said is like, I didn't even bother researching. I just went, let my friend, I didn't even research it. So what was that like when you got there and they told you this is what we're going to do?
Well, and yet, let me take a pause and say I don't recommend to go anywhere without research. Especially with psychedelics. It's
Right.
super important to do research. In my particular case, I knew well the people that recommended it to me, and that is kind of a research in itself. But yeah, always either know people that have gone personally to the place or really do an extensive research. So, I get to this place, it's called Costa Rica, it's called Rhythmia in Costa Rica. And it's a beautiful spot. It's like the five-star experience for psychedelic medicine and the largest one in the world. So I get there and I feel immediately at ease. And also they have a really great program, educational program where they're, just teaching you how to navigate the medicine. I actually teach myself sometimes there, several weeks a year. Which is a beautiful full circle of the whole experience. So I felt at ease, but I also was terrified, which is a very common combination. So I remember, I went into my first treatment and I was scared. I was scared, and nothing could have prepared me for how intense the experience with ayahuasca medicine is. So it's definitely not something to be taken lightly. It is a life-changing experience. And the people that get the best results are those that are ready to see and face themselves, and also willing and able to make any necessary changes in their lives, in their personality, in their habits, according to what comes up during these treatments.
And that's big. What you said it, right? I love what you said. Like you have to be willing and ready to make the changes, right? Like in addiction recovery, right? From substances, right? If I'm not ready, right, and I'm not willing to do the work, it's not going to stick, right? Because
Correct.
I'm going to keep telling myself this ain't going to work for me, so I don't even need to do it, And that's why I
Yeah.
relapsed 4 times, because I wasn't ready. I was doing it for everybody else but myself, right?
Hmm.
And what I hear you saying is that, like, going into something like this, it has to be because you want to make the change and you want to get better, right?
Yeah, definitely. Deciding to participate in any sort of psychedelic experience, and especially ayahuasca, is not something that you do to like please other people. It's not something that you do because everybody's doing it. It's not something that you do because someone is holding a sign down in Tulum, ayahuasca tonight. Is not to be taken lightly. It's a life-changing experience. And even other substances that are now being popularized a lot in the party scene, like mushrooms, is there, we have to be respectful with these substances. I personally don't take any mushrooms in any party setting. It doesn't work for me. Mushrooms for me are sacred, and I only take them in an environment where I can go within myself and sit with my feelings. They're sacred substances. The difference between mushrooms and ayahuasca is that ayahuasca is a lot more intense and highly purgative. So, humans, we have the tendency of kind of like trivializing stuff that are really sacred and coming from nature, especially.
So let me ask you this, right? So after you've gone through that, right? Like what is you got to keep it it's almost like treatment, right? You need aftercare. So how right? So you go through this wonderful experience, or well, depending who you're talking to, but right, some part of it's really eye-opening because like you said, you're going deep inside to look at yourself and the things that have happened to you, right? And from what I hear, it can be a very spiritual experience, right? Sometimes some people very overwhelming, right? But like you, some of the guests I've had said it was the best decision they ever made because now they're happy. They don't have to live with that negative self-talk anymore. They don't have to live with feeling like they're not good enough. So what does that look like, Melissa, when you're okay, you come home, you've gone through this 3-day retreat or however long it was. How was that experience? Like, what did you do to keep it going when you got home and to continue to heal, right? Because we know that anything like that, it's an ongoing process. Like I always like to tell my clients, like your recovery is not 90 days and then you've graduated, right? I go, the real work happens when you go home. Like how, like with therapy or going to meetings or going to IOP or how was that for you?
Well, that's a really, really wonderful question. If you allow me, let me rewind a second and just kind of like for the audience to understand what happened during that retreat, because then I can tie it in on what I had to do afterwards. So, on my third treatment there, I started to remember my childhood, and I didn't remember my childhood up to that point. I didn't remember the first 16 years of my life. And this is extremely common. I didn't know it back then, but now it's, after research and it's in many books, it's extremely common. And when we don't remember our childhood, it's usually a strong indicator that something happened that was overwhelming enough that our brain had to hide it. And this is more common for ongoing traumatic circumstances. So it's usually one-off, one-time event. We usually remember, but when we're children and we are in an environment, say that there is abuse or there is neglect or abandonment, and it's an ongoing thing, our brain just kind of blocks the whole experience. And it doesn't have to be your entire childhood neither. It can be, you don't remember years of your childhood, say from when you're 8 to 10 or, 12 to 14. So something might have happened in those years that, again, was traumatic enough for your brain to do what it's meant to do, which is to hide it from your conscious
Right.
awareness.
Protect you.
Yeah, exactly. So my third treatment, my life, to put it mildly, got destroyed in an instant when every cell in my body started to remember, because we hold our trauma and our traumatic experiences in our body.
Yeah.
So people think it's all in the mind, and that's not the case. The body is a library for everything that we have gone through. And not only for everything that we have gone through, but for everything that our parents have gone through and our grandparents, because we not only inherit our hair color or our eye color, we inherit all these traumatic experiences that is wired into their nervous system, and it comes wired into us.
Yep.
So
I agree.
life, gets destroyed, and also it allows me the beautiful opportunity to start to rebuild it. So, remembering what happened in my childhood, um, really took the rug off from under me. I didn't have a clue consciously. However, I had, as I mentioned, there were telltale signs throughout my life
Right.
that really pointed to the fact that something happened to me. But I never went to a psychiatrist. I never went to a psychologist. I never took prescription drugs. In fact, before I went to drink ayahuasca, I had never tried any drug whatsoever, not even pot.
Right.
So I was like very straight and narrow. So what happened afterwards is, as you just mentioned, the work started. So shamanic cultures, they say that 50% of the work happens during a ceremony, right? With ayahuasca, with a natural plant, and 50% happens after you leave. However, shamanic cultures live in the Amazons, surrounded by nature, by the
Right.
jungle. They're not in
Right.
the Western world, right? With
Right.
Instagram and social media and 9 to 5s. So the ratio is more like 20% happens, usually very dramatically, during a ceremony, during a treatment, and then 80% happens afterwards. It happens when we go home and we have to
Right.
integrate the experience. And what that involves is actually changing ourselves. So the plant medicines, the psychedelic treatments, they start to rewire our brain. So new neural pathways are created on the spot when we are participating with plants like ayahuasca, or psilocybin, which is the active ingredient of mushrooms. And then that new path is not worn out. It's not the one that we normally use. The path that we normally use is still there. And we love going down that path.
Right.
Say addiction. So we
Right.
go, we go to Rhythmia in Costa Rica, life changes. You see the causes of your addiction. You see what happened to you that caused you to, need to hide your feelings and numb yourself. Then you go home and you have a new awareness. There is a new neural pathway that tells you, hey, we don't have to do this anymore. We can feel our feelings. You know what you need to drink, but you can make a different choice. So it's up to us to go down the new path that was created, or to go down the same old path and grab a bottle of whiskey as soon as you come home and start drinking
Right.
and say, yeah, that was really cool. That was a great experience, but like I'm feeling low right now. Let me go back to my old ways.
Right.
So that's just a simple analogy. So it really is the key of integration for a psychedelic experience is the ability to make new choices. Because if you went to a retreat and you went because your life wasn't working out, when you come home, if you're not making new choices and you're just making old choices, why do you go? What's the point of going across the world and
Hmm.
then come back and continue to make the same choices?
Well, here, okay. So I know this is in my head, and I'm sure some of the audience. So you come back from the retreat. How do you continue the work so you don't fall? What I'm getting at, so you don't fall back into old behaviors, right? Because you're right. Like the brain, the subconscious mind doesn't know the truth from reality, right? It's the same, right? So as you're building in these ceremonies new neural pathways, right? Which in order to change, neuroscience has proven we need to build new neural pathways, right? Like I was taught, like, because I'm diagnosed with clinical depression, right? Like my sponsor was a much wiser man than me, and he said, "This is not just some recovery thing, but I want you to do this gratitude journal because it's going to help you in the long run, right? Because as you say, neuroscience has proven if I put something positive in my brain upon awakening, right? And then it's the last thing I do at night before I go to bed, I'm going to build new neural pathways, which in turn is going to help me look at the world, at you, at myself in in a more positive light because I'm building those positive pathways. So how does someone, if they come to you, Melissa, say, okay, I've done these ceremonies. What do I do now? I'm home. Like
Perfect.
that's where you come into play, right? Like this is because you've been through it and now you kind of help people with that process, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the interesting part is that most places that are serving psychedelics, they're really not doing a good job in helping people integrate. So they serve a lot of medicine, they see a lot of people every year, but people are unable to sustain the entire transformation. Maybe they can sustain some aspects, but not the entire transformation that they could fully sustain if they were more
Right.
supported. So one, there is the advantage that what happens with psychedelics is really changes at a deep level. It's not even a conscious change. It's a subconscious
Right.
change. It's a rewiring of the brain and a rewiring like of your nervous system itself. So that gives you an advantage when you come home. Now, when you come home, integration is super duper important. And that's one of the reasons, like one of the things that I'm passionate about is I've been creating a preparation and integration course for psychedelic medicines that is for people to do short lessons before they go to an experience and then short lessons daily after the experience. And in those lessons, for me, they're practical. Why? Because when I went to all the places I went and had incredible life-changing experiences, I had zero support when I go home. So I had to figure out how to sustain my transformation. And I think that is all by design, right? Because what that allowed me to do was to realize, wow, there is no support out there. People are gonna like really struggle because I'm struggling. So people are gonna struggle.
Right.
What can I do about this? It's like, oh, okay. So let me look back and see in the last few years what has helped me to be able to sustain my transformation. When I stumbled on my path, what did I have to do to get back on track? And by kind of doing that mental review, I was able to create a really amazing, integration course, and it's almost done. I'm going to release it in April, so I'm really excited about it. But for people that just want to know simple stuff, is sometimes people think integration and life changes require you to do some grand action. And so they focus on, let's say that, they want to come home and then immediately they want to move cities and they want to start yoga teaching training. And at the same time, they want to quit alcohol altogether.
Right.
And they're going to make peace with their mom, their dad, and their three siblings. And that's their goal for the week. And
Right.
it's overwhelming, like
Right.
people get
Absolutely.
overwhelmed and they're going to fail because it's too much. So it's the small things every day, like the gratitude journal you mentioned. I do it. I've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
So small habits create really big results because we can be consistent with them.
Right. Because I think you said it right. If we try to do these grand things when we get back, right, what happens is we might miss the mark, right? And as you know, and I know, right, we can be our own worst enemy, right? Oh, that didn't work, so I'm going to quit. I don't need to do that anymore, right? But like you said, if you come home and you keep continuing to do the small steps, right? Like 1% better every day is what I heard from some mentors of mine, right? It came from a fitness guy. I mean, he has since passed away, but he was really big in the fitness realm here in like Venice Beach, right? In LA and stuff, and made a lot of money. But he did that because he helped people learn how to build fitness business, but not all at once, right? Like small steps. Like he would take them in and say, you're going to sleep on my couch and I'm going to teach you how to do this so you could be self-sufficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he would tell these people and tell the world, like, all you got to do is 1% better than the day before, right? Because if you give yourself, say, a year, right, to do something, and you're only giving yourself 1%, because imagine at the end of the year when you've done the 1%, you look back and you're like, dang, I'm 365% better than I was last year, right? And that's the kind of the momentum that helps. I'll speak for myself, right? Because I know when I trust me, I do make big goals for myself, right? The ones that make me want to cry, right? Like I'm not going to be able to do it, right? Because it pushes me. But on a daily basis, I just learned to just keep my feet moving one step at a time, right? Because then
Yeah.
I know I will get up that mountain, right? Say I want to climb a mountain. Well, you can't do it all at once, right? It takes a step, a crawl, a pull, right? One at a time, and you get there, right? So I appreciate that because you're bringing a ton of value to the audience right now, because it's funny because they're going to be like, Max, I know you're sober and you're bringing all these people that do like psychedelics because here I have come to believe, right? Recovery, whatever it's from, is an individual process, right? And if I can show the world through you different ways to heal traumas, or right, because like you said, on day 3, you started to remember all those years you didn't remember, right? And that can be traumatic, right? But what I love, what you're telling my audience is that you got a course coming, but that integration is key, right? To keep the change going, right? Because, I can't tell you how many times, Melissa, like parents will drop off a young one, right? Or their adult child, but here, we're going to go on vacation. You fix them and we'll come pick them up and everything will be hunky dory. And it's like, doesn't work that way, right? They're going to have to continue the work, right? Whether it's going to 12-step meetings or whatever, right? And I said, and I've told parents, you're in recovery as well, right? You've been affected by the addict. So you need to heal because ignoring the problem is not going to go away, right? So I think what you're saying about integration. So I'm going to go back, right? Like, and I'm sure my audience like me is like, what does that integration look like? I know it's coming out in April, but can you give us some ideas like how that works? Because like you and I will talk after this, and I know some people that could use that the psychedelic, whether it's ayahuasca or psilocybin, right, to help with their trauma. But they're always worried. It's like, okay, once I do it, what do I do then? Right? Like, I don't want to open a can of worms, right? You could see the fear in their eyes. Like, I'm willing to do it, but I need help afterwards to keep it. So I can, it's like almost like EMDR, right? For therapists who, right? Because you're right. The body, the brain stores trauma throughout the body, right? And like me, I know where my trauma sits sometimes, and it's my lower back, right? When my lower back hurting, I always tell myself, oh, you must be going through a traumatic event in your brain that you, right? But it's proven, like, I mean, that's why EMDR is so successful. Like, it could help in conjunction with psychedelics, I think, after someone comes back from a retreat to
Yeah.
to seek out a therapist that will help them, get rid of all that trauma in their body because as you get older, it's harder to get rid of it. Like in my case, right? I'll just tell you, like, sometimes it's real slow, but so what does that look like, Melissa, the integration? Because I'm sure I got people in the audience just scratching their head. Okay, that sounds great, but like, what does that mean?
Yeah, if I may, let me just make one clarification on the points that you mentioned that I think can be useful for people because
Okay.
it was useful for me. Because I had I had this resistance to go and take a drug. I had never taken a drug, right? So there is a key difference between ayahuasca and the other substances that are considered drugs. So ayahuasca, by definition alone, does not fall in the category of a drug. Okay.
Right.
So what is a drug? It's a substance that as you take it, you need more of it because your tolerance becomes higher. Ayahuasca is actually the opposite. The more you take it, the less you need. Now, there is also the withdrawal symptom, right? Like withdrawal symptoms, like you stop drinking alcohol, or sugar. I always throw sugar down the line because
Because you are
people don't
spot on.
realize
Yep.
people don't realize that sugar is a drug and it's one of the deadliest drugs there is in the world. So you stop alcohol or you stop sugar and you're craving that. That doesn't happen with ayahuasca. So I wanted to make that differentiation so people understand that the definition that the society gives us of drugs falls on certain substances, but it doesn't fall really on ayahuasca. So now to continue talking about the integration, there are many things that people can do afterwards to sustain their practice. So, for example, body-oriented practices that are really helpful is yoga, stretching, breath work.
Yeah.
Why are they helpful? Because they help you regulate your nervous system. So when you go through a psychedelic experience, there is a lot of turmoil that happens in every area of your body, in every area of your brain. But the beauty of it, if done in the right setting, right, in a place that is safe, with facilitators that know what they're doing and they can support you, the beauty of it is that it's different that when you go to say AA meetings or you go to a psychiatrist, because those are working on a conscious level, right? You're talking, you're repeating your story, you're making commitments, right? But psychedelics happen in a cellular level, in an energetic level. So it's a much deeper level. So when you come home, usually you have cleared up a lot of the underlying causes for the behaviors that you have had in the past. So yes, it is difficult to come back home and sustain your transformation, but you already have, 2 thumbs up to get started. So what that will look like is surrounding yourself by people that are like-minded. Many times when you go through these experiences, you come home and you go through psychedelic experiences and you come home and you realize the people around you are not supportive. They're not helping you on the path that you need to be on to become the person that you're meant to be.
Right.
And the healing path becomes a very lonely path, many times momentarily, because you have to let go of a lot of relationships that were with you, with the old version of you, that they love that version of you, but you don't love that version of you. So you gotta let go of the people that cannot fall in love with the person that you're becoming. And then there is a period of solitude in a way, because then you need to create your new community. You need to go and maybe to more retreats or to, yoga centers or breathwork classes or just places where people are really trying to work on themselves and meet new people there. So community is a huge part of integration. It's a huge part of integration. It's really hard to change your entire life if you're not supported,
Right.
by friends, by
Mhm.
family. So just really looking at your circle. Um, Another thing that's very important is becoming a lifelong learner. Like I really emphasize that the brain loves information. And so if you have had to remove a lot of time consuming habits that you maybe had before, say that you had a porn addiction or alcohol addiction, or friends that were partying all the time and you were partying all the time and now you're home after a psychedelic treatment and you have a lot of time in your hands, that time will actually be your worst enemy if you don't fill it up with things that nurture you. So
Right.
for me, what did that look like? Reading. So reading books that interest me, and that in fact allowed me not only to continue to reinforce and understand what I went through better, but it allowed me to become the person that could then open the door to my purpose, which is to share, from a knowledgeable place,
Right.
all of these things about trauma, about psychedelics. So the bottom line is occupy your time with things that are supporting your growth. Those
Right.
are, two really important aspects. Um, and then I will say another thing that was really helpful for me was to become more self-aware. So what that meant is really pay attention to my reactions. Because, when we come home after a psychedelic experience, there is a window of opportunity where we are really open. Like our channels, our brain channels are like sponges. They're like, oh, I want to learn, I want to learn. And in that moment, say that we come home and we have a particular way that we react around a partner or around a
Right.
family member. And then all of a sudden we catch ourselves being verbally violent or, impatient or whatever. In that moment is when self-awareness becomes so important. Self-awareness is like a mirror that is reflecting back to you. And you can look in the mirror and see if you like what you're looking at. And if you don't like the way that you're responding to people, then in that instance, you start changing it. So self-awareness is the key to transformation.
Right. Well, that's what your work and the addiction field is very similar and together. And the idea with I tell clients that all too. When you go home, you're going to have a time where you're going to be down, and there's only going to be you, yourself, and yourself. And I said that's a dangerous place to be. So now I understand, right? When my sponsors say get a job, I don't care what it is, flip burgers, go pull weeds, keep your brain occupied, because you've been clean now for a while. You're starting to feel stuff and remember stuff that you did, right? And if you spend too much alone time, right, that could be a negative, right? Because I'm going to turn to something I'm feeling uncomfortable, but I know what will make me feel better now, right?
Hmm.
Right. And it's the same with the psychedelics, right? Like you said it, the window of opportunity closes quickly if you're not careful, right? Like, so I love what you said, right? Like, that's why I tell clients that I work with in my private practice, right? It's mind, body, spirit. Keep yourself busy in all areas, right? Put good, like, read good books, like you said, read books that are going to help you grow as a human being, and so that you can continue to learn. Body, like, exercise. I don't care if it's a walk for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. Get your body moving, right? Because exercise is good for the soul. I mean, as well as physical health, there's something about exercise that, right, it releases endorphins and it's a feel good for your body. And then spirit, right? Whatever that looks like, clients I work with, it's 12 steps, or it's going to yoga or learning breath work. What I'm learning about breath work, it's amazing stuff, right? Like, when I first heard of breath work, I'm like, what is this stuff, right? And then I heard of that guy from Holland. What's his name? He's a guy that climbed Everest with shorts.
Oh, the Wim Hof.
Yeah, Wim Hof. Yes, so I'm doing my research, right? And I've seen this thing on YouTube where he's on a mountain in the snow, just in shorts and shoes. And I'm like, I don't know if this is for me because I'm not going to do that, right? But I hear breath work, when practiced, is a great regulator of the nervous system.
Yes.
Right?
In fact, breath work actually will create similar experiences than ayahuasca. Breath work alone, it will actually expand your consciousness, take you to enhanced states of awareness where you can remember your childhood, where you can release trauma. So when done, I'm not talking about just breathing, I'm talking breath work, which is work.
Right.
When done as a breath work technique, it can be super powerful. And this is another thing that I also tell people. Yes, get engaged in some breath work, but also make sure that you know where you're going. Because if stuff starts to come up, you want to feel safe and supported so you don't stop the release of what might be coming up. I mean, many times, like the place in Costa Rica, Arrhythmia, they offer 4 ayahuasca treatments, and then they offer 2 very intense breath work sessions. And people release so much in these breath work sessions, but it's a safe environment. So if they are crying, if they're screaming, they're feeling safe and supported, and that's really important.
Absolutely, right? It's absolutely. I mean, listen to what Melissa's telling you, everybody, right? Like, I suggest this stuff, but do your homework, right? Like that Wim Hof guy, like, yes, he's the extreme. Like he's done it for so long and dialed it in. Like, he can swim under ice, I mean, because that's the power of the brain and the body and the breath work stuff that he does. It regulates everything. So he can do that stuff, right? But listen to what Melissa says, right? If you go and do these retreats and you're wondering, like, it'll be in the show notes, right? Reach out to someone like Melissa who has a better understanding of post, right, ceremonies, and how she keeps her stuff going, right? Her recovery, let's say. So that's what I understand. But I hope everybody's understanding, because it is important. It's like with any recovery, just like whether it's physical, like after a surgery, they tell you to walk now, and they don't want you sitting around doing nothing, because it actually, your body won't heal as good as if you get up and move and get the blood pumping, right? And it's same with our mind, right? Keeping the mind going and keeping it on a healing path by, we've mentioned it, gratitude journal, doing yoga, doing breath work, and right. I mean, because I'm so grateful that you took me up on this and you're here with us today. Because I mean, I'm learning so much from you, Melissa, and I'm sure my audience is too. And it's been an amazing time. But I'm going to ask you some of the questions that I love asking, and I forgot to put up my thing behind me, right? But fearless, right? I'm going to start with fearless. What does fearless mean to you, and how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
It definitely does not mean absence of fear. It means feeling your fear and seeing it as a doorway and walking through it, knowing that on the other side, there's going to be growth, blessings. So it's to be able to open the door of fear and go to the other side. And what was the second part of it?
So the next part, my next question is happiness. And you can't see it because normally I put my background up. Everybody, I messed up today, but I spell happiness with a Y. It's the same as my podcast and my book, but I put a Y where the I is. So knowing I put a Y in happiness, what does happiness mean to you? And how does that show up in your life on a daily basis?
All right. Happiness means peace. Happiness means the capacity to sit with yourself, by yourself, and feel that you're living an authentic, peaceful life. And that shows up in my life even more now than ever, although I'm still work in progress. It shows up when I'm able to just have this internal sense of gratitude and authenticity and silence, an internal silence. Yeah.
Right. I'm with you. Right. When I had my first experience of silence by myself, right, without like, I don't know about you, but when I first got sober, it was like the hardest thing for me to do is sit and be quiet by myself. Right. But that experience, I think, like you said, that was just the beginning. But I know what you mean, being able to just sit with yourself and be okay with who's looking back. I like to say who's smiling back at you in the mirror. That's to me is happiness today for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I love it, and like I said, Melissa, this has been a wonderful, wonderful time. But before we go, there's a couple of things I'd like to do. And that is if someone wants to get a hold of you and is looking into doing, you know, psychedelics because of trauma, addiction, or whatever, and they want to work with you, how do they get a hold of you, Melissa?
So there's several ways. They can go directly to my website, which is Melissa, Melissa dash Osorio, Osorio.com. So melissaosorio.com. And then there is a contact button, or there is a link to my Instagram, and they can send me a direct message. My online preparation and integration course will be on the website towards the end of April. So yeah, they can always, utilize that. There is a lot of information in my book as well, which is a beautiful and informative read. It's called Hidden Memories. Discover what's blocking you from life and love. And it's in Amazon and also in Audible, and I narrate it in Audible. So it's 7 hours of my accent, people.
I love it. We love your accent.
Yeah, so it's a really educational book. It's people that read the book are 99% more knowledgeable and prepared to decide if they want to participate in a psychedelic assisted therapy or not than 99% of the world.
I love it. Right. And my fault, everybody, but I didn't touch on her book, but this is a good reason to bring Melissa back for a second time so we could talk about her book, right, and educate people even more on psychedelic treatment and moving forward in their lives. Because, like, I don't know about you, everybody, but the universe keeps bringing wonderful guests like Melissa to me, and we get to share her story and how she healed. And thank you again for gracing us with your presence and honoring me by being here. But you're not quite off the hook yet, Melissa. I have one last question that I ask of all my guests. It's my favorite one, and it goes like this. What is the one piece of advice you could give my audience to help them grow as human beings and become better people?
Don't give up on yourself, regardless of how life has been or how old you are or what has gone through. It's never too late unless you decide it is. No one can take your power away unless you give it away. So, be open, be curious. If you're listening to podcasts like these, or you see information about psychedelics, or, about integration of experiences, I believe the universe is dropping you a little bomb there to maybe shake your reality a little bit. So listen, don't give up on yourself.
I love it. Love it. You heard that, everybody. And I tell you that all the time. Never give up on yourself. There's always hope. So everybody keep moving forward, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Again, Melissa, thank you for being here. This has been such a wonderful time, but you heard her, everybody. If Melissa made you think, if she taught you something, if she made you smile, and my famous, if she made you go, I like that, Please go to iTunes and leave a 5-star review so more people can find the podcast. And again, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this world. This is Max from the Fearless Happiness Podcast. Until next time.
Are you tired of being weighed down by life's traumas and struggles? Join the Fearless Happiness lifestyle and let us guide you toward a brighter future. Explore our past podcast episodes and get a copy of the Fearless Happiness book to ignite your inner strength. If you or someone you love is battling addiction or facing challenges related to unresolved trauma, know that we are here for you. Visit maxnijst.org, maxnijst.org, and take the first steps toward finding your fearless happiness. Thank you for listening. This has been a production of Fearless Happiness.